what are the biggest blind spots that you find in communication when you're going into a larger organization?
The biggest blind spots, there are lots of them. I think the biggest blind spots is not being self-aware. HERO stands for humility, empathy, reflection, and open-minded. And although R is the third letter in the acronym, we always start with that reflection. That's where self-awareness comes in. If using kind of some sports terminology and sports concepts, it's when we review game tape.
Are there other things just from a behavior science point of view that are more effective, that are easy to operationalize, other than just break the task down to an absurd one? Dr. Stephen Robbins, thank you so much for coming on the show. Excited to have you here. So I'd love to hear your story about how you started your consultancy in the first place as we jump right in.
Okay. I never planned to be a consultant. I never planned to do what I'm actually doing right now. I'd always planned to be a professor, but things in life happen that move you here and there, and here I am. So I do a lot of motivational speaking. I work with Fortune 100, 200, 500 companies on building better organizations. I have a PhD in Communication Science and Neuroscience. So I'm a human behavioral scientist, social psychologist, and that's the perspective I take when I work with organizations.
That is a rare combination.
Yeah.
So you never planned to do this? How did it happen?
No,
Did you never want to look for another job? That's what happened to me.
So I went to school originally to be a sportscaster.
Yeah.
And I only wanted to do that for a little bit, but you quickly find out that you don't make as much money as you think you do. And it takes a long time. Only a few people actually make a lot of money being a sportscaster. I did some work with ABC Sports in Chicago. I was a producer for the NBC affiliate in Grand Rapids just for a few years. But that was really my long-term plan was to be a professor. And so that was just, I wanted to get what we call real world experience so I could talk about it in the classroom. So that's what I did. And in graduate school, I had some mentors that were consultants with the government, with large companies, and they just they would bring me in on private consulting projects they had. And I kind of grew from there. I was a professor for a while, for 10 years, and then I was still doing consulting while I was teaching in the classroom like my mentors were, and it just became so big that I left the classroom.
And since you have that, both sides of it, kind of, people on earlier on their journey, you're trying to prepare them, and then you have people later on, you're trying to help them actually execute. I'd love to hear, what are the biggest blind spots that you find in communication when you're going into a larger organization?
The biggest blind spots, there are lots of them. I think the biggest blind spots is not being self-aware.
Yeah. How does that show up on an organizational level? It's always easy to see someone and say, oh, they have no idea how they're coming off. But I know in larger organizations, there's definitely, I've been involved with departments where they obviously know how they're coming across and who their partnerships are, and other ones that don't seem to even get the rest of what's going on. How do you identify this?
Well, I have people kind of do an analysis of their own communication, teams do an analysis of how they communicate with one another, first of all. But it comes down to, we're not very self-aware. As a neuroscientist, it's very energy consuming to be self-aware. I use the terms ancient and modern brain to describe this very complex thing called the human brain, but I want to simplify it for people so I can get to some main points. And we're operating of our ancient brain a lot, and it's not self-aware at all. It doesn't have this thing called metacognition, and metacognition is kind of uniquely human, and it allows us to be self-aware, to think about and evaluate our own thoughts. Other animals can't do that. We have it, we don't use it very much.
Yeah, because it's expensive and effortful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And our brain is kind of lazy, and it doesn't like to put out effort unless you give it a goal that it deems worthy.
So what's the easiest way, in your opinion, to get teams or leaders to start using this appropriately?
There's no easy way.
Yeah.
Well, the concepts are actually easy. I have this thing called the HERO skills. You can see the sign on the back, HERO skills. HERO stands for humility, empathy, reflection, and open-minded. And although R is the third letter in the acronym, we always start with that reflection. That's where self-awareness comes in. Using kind of some sports terminology, and sports concepts, it's when we review game tape. Review game tape after the game, after the interaction, but also if you're really good at self-awareness and mindfulness, you can be in the moment and present with your own thoughts as you engage people. I can show people that, and it actually is pretty easy to practice. It's an easy concept to understand, but the difficult thing I found in organizations is, I hate to say it, whether it's leaders or employees or just the regular person, we like to listen to things, but we don't like to practice things that we say are good to listen to. So that's why self-help books are a multi-billion-dollar-a-year business. We like to read about things, but we don't.
It feels good.
Yeah,
it feels illusion good. Of learning feels really pleasurable to like.
Well, yeah, that's the dopamine part. You know, people think we get our biggest hit of dopamine when we achieve some result that we wanted to cross the finish line. We do get a big hit there, but we get our biggest hits of dopamine in anticipation of achievement. Yeah. So imagine if
just
that's
thinking
true.
About it.
Yeah, just thinking about it. So we'll read books and we'll get these hits of dopamine that says, oh, I feel good. I can do this. I can do this. I can do that. We put down the book. We may start to do a few things and we go, oh, that's too hard. Let me read another book. So we buy another book and feel.
Oh, I'd love to double click on this because this is a super fundamental that I feel like relates to everything. I'm just thinking about my clients in marketing and my best clients versus the ones that struggle more. And it all comes down to doing things. To actually executing. And some people like to kind of overcook it, and they kind of maybe burn a lot of energy in not doing it. It's just like you just need to do the thing. Right. And how do you, and I mean, a lot of people call this execution, but it's surprisingly difficult to get someone to execute. They'll do something.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously you have to have a plan and a strategy. And then just as Nike said, you just got to do it. And there's nothing more complex than that, except that our brain doesn't like to do new things unless it deems like there's a big reward. And even then it's hard to do new things. Yeah. Now, some people are genetically risk averse, and
I'm not one of those people.
They don't want to step out. And then some of us are, we're open to risk, but even when we're open to risk, it's hard for us to take that first step because our brain doesn't like the unknown. It doesn't like uncertainty, but we have to do it. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you step into discomfort, the easier it becomes.
And I mean, the best tactic I know of, I'm hoping you have something better. The best thing I know of is to break the task down to absurdly tiny steps so that we reduce the maximum uncertainty. So it's like a little step and we're, gonna get there. Are there other things just from a behavior science point of view that are more effective, that are easy to operationalize other than just break the task down to an absurd point?
No, I think that's fundamentally what happens when you build habits. So you break down to little actions that lead to the habit that you desire, and it can be applied here. The issue is, well, not the issue, there are multiple issues, but sometimes we have a task that we want to know the outcome before we undertake it. So then that becomes possibly a barrier into even taking that first task. We need to be able to be okay with discomfort, and we need to be able, each task that we put in front of ourselves, we need to know what to do. I mean, even the simple tasks, there are steps even in a simple task.
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to say, I can control these steps in the task, but I can't control others. And we have to be okay with the outcome, whatever that be. And if the outcome is something that we desire, we have to pivot. Right?
Yeah. Always try to reframe it in terms of like data. The outcome will be, we've learned what happened when you did that, but not everyone buys into this idea. They don't really buy into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look at the data and go, this is what happened. And what are the things that we did that influenced that outcome? One of my sons is a professional golfer. He earned a Korn Ferry Tour card. He's going back to Q school next month. But a lot of things that I've tried to get across to him that he's learned, whether through me or someone else, is you can't control outcomes most of the time. When he was a little kid, I would ask him, what's your goal? And he'd say, I want to go win a golf tournament, or I want to shoot this score. And I go, can you control that? Can you control that outcome? No, because there are other players playing and you can shoot 5 under that day and somebody else shoots 8 under and you won't win. What you can't control are lots of things that lead up to the tournament and the lead up to a swing. You can control the effort you put into practice. You can control what, if you practice enough, you raise the probability that you will put a good swing on a ball. But you can put a good swing on the ball. It goes down 298 yards down the fairway. It hits a sprinkler head in the middle of the fairway and bounces into the rough, into the trees. That's an outcome you can't control, but you put a great swing on the ball, and you have to be able to be okay with that.
Yeah. Which also makes me think of like leading indicators. Like if you're going to focus on something,
Right.
they should be leading indicators, because at least those lead to the thing you're aiming toward.
Yeah. In multifactorial model terms, it's, look at your inputs. You can't always control the output, the dependent variable, many independent variables.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Well, just to zigzag back to reflection and metacognition. Reflection, just when I think about this from, I have a little bit of a meditation background. So when I think about it, reflection is like, it's going backwards, and it's the easiest thing to get someone to do. You can have a worksheet and now they're reflecting, they just follow the worksheet. They don't have to understand anything about how their brain is working, but kind of doing it live in real time is harder to get that idea across. Do you have good methods that work in a corporate setting that can help somebody start to get skills in, like, I don't know, real-time live metacognition?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's step by step, breaking things down. When, you say you practice meditation, which is great. And I think that's a start to becoming more self-aware, right? Reflection is not just self-awareness, it's analysis as well.
Right.
And so you have to take the first step of just helping people become self-aware. Most of the time, metacognition, this ability that's kind of uniquely human, is part of what is a central part of being human, and it's this part of this, what I call the modern brain. If you read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, he'll refer to system 2, right? We have this other thing called the ancient brain, our limbic system. Kahneman refers to it as system 1. And that's kind of just the react brain. We don't think about things. We just do things, whether it's out of habit, out of pattern,
stress,
out of stress. Exactly. And so most of the day, 70 to 80% of the day, we are operating out of this ancient brain, which makes us efficient. And since we're still, human beings are still on the earth today as the nexus predator, it served us very well. It leads us to be efficient, quick, energy conserving, but in moments that we need to be reflective and mindful, it doesn't serve us well. And when you said stress earlier, our ancient brain, if we don't practice something like mindfulness and self-awareness, under stress, we're operating out of our ancient brain about 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So first step is practice meditation, practice being mindful, practice being aware of your internal states. And then we can go to things like move on to, so if you are aware that you are stressed or angry right now, you may not want to be around people, or if you have to be around people, you may want to listen more than you talk. And an issue when people practice that, they may need a sheet of paper that says, listen more, just to remind them, because the ancient brain will want to just kind of fire back when it doesn't like something, for example.
Yeah, I'm remembering the last time I did this. Like, wish you were listening. Would have been better. Yeah. And one thing I'm just thinking about is, like, from a personal point of view that I've noticed, I'd love to hear your take on this, is that you can organize your schedule and your life in a way that's going to facilitate like more stress or less stress. Like, for example, if I were to pack my calendar full with sales calls, I can't do that the whole week. By the end of the week, I'm not thinking, I can't, that's like a stressful environment that I need some kind of special protected time. How much can you, from an organizational point of view, design in lower stress environment? It's so hard to do in businesses where there's always a pressure to,
I think, it's just have to create that type of culture of reflection to move fast, but also take the time to pause, reflect, analyze, which allows you to move even faster. We are in a go culture, and we don't rest our brain. We don't give it time to reflect and make better decisions, actually. And leaders have to model that. Leaders in organizations have to model that. Not only, they have to do it for themselves, but they have to model it for other people in the organization, because the brain is designed to pay attention to the alpha in the room, the leader. And whatever the leader does, the followers will tend to do as well. And sometimes leaders are not very reflective and don't understand how much influence, subtle, very subconscious influence they have on those that they lead.
That's an excellent point. So yeah, it's just coming again, like fundamentals coming down to modeling the behavior
Yeah.
you're trying to create, the environment you're
Exactly.
trying to create.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious just to hear about some of your favorite success stories working with some of these organizations. Are there any of stories you can share with us about how you've taken an organization and helped them be more effective and more self-aware?
Well, without naming a lot, I mean, I've
Yeah.
worked with whether it's NASA or Disney or whoever, when they, whatever organization, when they take the concepts that I might talk to them about and start practicing them, that's when good things happen. When they start to use the terms, I will know that I talk about, that I provide. Then I'm starting to know that it's getting built into the culture, right? Many organizations have words that describe their culture, and I tell them, I don't care what your words are. I care what your patterns of behavior are. If I'm a sociologist, I'm going to walk into your organization. I won't even look at or pay attention much to what you tell me your culture is. I'm going to observe how people treat each other and the patterns of behavior there. And then I will infer the culture that you have. And I will tell you if the culture that is operationalized is the one that you conceptualized.
I
Oh,
love that. Yeah. And do you have a way? I mean, that seems difficult to do given who you are. Like people will know who you are. Do you have a secret shopper or a secret employee? Like, is there a way you can do this without being detected?
no, I don't. I mean, I will do it if they ask me to, but that's a long research project.
Yeah.
I will have them say, this is the culture we want conceptually. These are the behaviors that you would expect to see if you have this culture. So those behaviors operationalize the concept. And then what I would suggest they do, if they are really wanting to build the culture, is I would have people practice these behaviors. Then I would do a pre-test, post-test research. Ask people, in the last 30 days, how many times have you seen this behavior? What they said,
Specific behavior.
0 to 1 times, 2 to 4 times, whatever it is, right? And then if they were serious about this, then we could learn from the survey data from people observing behaviors if they're moving towards the culture they said they wanted.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, as we wrap up, is for what advice do you have for our leaders in 2025? I feel like this year, maybe I'm just getting older, but I feel like change is accelerating. You know, we have all this AI stuff especially marketing, like every minute there's a new tool.
Right.
There's a lot of everyone's anticipating changes. I think younger generation is anticipating like a different economic landscape. How do you deal with this as a leader? What's your best advice for them as we wrap up?
It's counterintuitive, but in times of great change, we need to pause. We need to pause and analyze what is coming at us and what is useful and what is not. AI coming at us, we have to decide, we have to first understand what it is, what it can do, and then understand how it can help us and how it can hurt us. But we need to pause and analyze for that. We need to study it and take that time to say, yeah, AI is a technology. It's not good. It's not bad. It's neutral. How we use it can tell us if it's good or bad, and what it produces for us tell us if it's good or bad. But it's up to us to use the technology we've been given. You know, every generation has said things are changing so fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Every generation says that.
I think about my grandma who like saw electricity, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a big one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And although it's counterintuitive, we have to pause and analyze and use this modern brain that human beings have developed to look at, well, this is good and this is bad. This is help us, this can't. What are the multiple ways of seeing this? What are the multiple ways of interpreting the data that we have coming at us in our world? Because our fast, quick, efficient, and lazy brain wants to interpret it one way.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good to be on with you. I don't know if I helped with anything.
You definitely did. Definitely did.